All righty. All right, everybody, here for episode 8 with Matt Hansen. We're going to go ahead and do our typical GPT bio of Matt. Matt, by the way, GPT had an extremely difficult time writing a bio for you. It said it couldn't find you. Then
Yeah,
it wrote.
I'm a musician, a politician. Yeah, it's just I've done a lot of things. Yeah,
So
I'm a medical professional. Yeah.
here's what it eventually came up with, and we'll find out if it was true. Meet Matt Hansen, the Utah basement coder who built mortgage app rocket SimpleNexus, wrote it to processing roughly 1 in 7 U.S. home loans, then sold the whole thing to Encino for a cool $1.2 billion before taking the wheel as their chief product officer. He still sneaks in pull requests between wrangling his 4 kids, insists retirement means launching a secret skunkworks inside a public company, and is living proof that debugging at 3 a.m. can, in fact, pay off the house. Buckle up for stories of billion-dollar basements, cloud banking plot twists, and why shipping software is allegedly easier than bedtime. Matt, how did it do?
Okay, that was
Okay.
there were lots of verbal twists there I wasn't anticipating.
It also made a comment in the original write-up about something about starting coding on a Tandy 1000 and still sneaking in pull requests between board meetings. So
A Tandy 1000. Okay. Hey, that sounds great. We'll take it.
awesome, Matt. Thanks so much for joining us here today. So what I'd love to start off with is really, how did you end up in the mortgage market, or mortgage industry? You know, we talk about this often on the show. It's not like any of us as little kids were like, man, I really want to be in mortgage tech.
Yeah, everybody got into mortgage kind of by accident.
Yes.
Right. And it was similar with me. Yeah, I was a longtime coder. And I was the coder addict. So like if all my friends went to, growing up, if all my friends were going to the club, I was coding. If they were going out dancing, I stayed home and coded because I love building things. It's just what I'd rather do. So my brother-in-law came to me one day to family dinner and said, hey, if like I'm just kind of tired. He's a loan officer. He said, I'm kind of tired of people asking me what their monthly payments would be if they put another $1,000 down on their mortgage. So could you build me an app? And this is like late 2010, early 2011. So if you've got an app, everybody will install it, right? So so I said, yeah, I could probably do it on Saturday. And so and it's not like building an app is not an overly complicated thing in and of itself, right? And so I built that, and then he put his face and his phone number on it, and his friends and coworkers wanted him, and I just kept building it, and I was having all kinds of fun, and this is great. The whole industry will use my customized app thing with their face and phone number on it. And then my wife said, if you're not going to spend time with me, maybe you could charge people. That seems reasonable. So rounded up some buddies, and we started putting a little more infrastructure and framework around it. And the Dodd-Frank Act started getting some teeth in like 2012, 13, and so individual loan officers couldn't really come and sign up on it on their own at the time, because the mortgage companies were all freaked out about what it meant from a compliance perspective. So so then we started adding in organizational level controls, and then white labeling to companies, and then eventually kind of moved more towards the enterprise solutions, and enterprise level controls, right? And then it moved beyond the mobile app thing, right? We got to where it was all the way from searching for a home through closing, e-recording, e-vaulting, closing doc prep, automatic signature detections, these types of things, right? To and at the time, this was earlier, I guess, AI period, and so we were using AI to determine the signature points and who should sign in those signature points, because the LOSs in general were not all in the best place in supporting understanding unstructured templates, and who should sign where on those unstructured templates. So we got to where we could, with relatively good accuracy, call it 99 plus 99 point something percent of documents, we accurately determined all of the signature points and who should sign them. But we did have a human in the loop. For anyone who's not familiar with that, that's where you've got humans who are validating all of it, right? And then they correct it, and then it self learns and then improves for the next time around. Um, but um, but yeah, that was early. It was pre Chat GPT days.
Right. Yeah.
So
So, out of curiosity, what was the first thing you built? Do you remember? Like as a software engineer, as you said, you were addicted. So I imagine that you were building obviously a lot of things before SimpleNexus, and so I'm curious to know what was the first thing you ever built.
well, I mean, you've got your tinkering stuff, and then you've got your company stuff. The first company I worked for, it was building a, a point of sale system for a motorsports industry,
Oh,
um, and power sports. But before that, it was probably some website that used some JavaScript, and at the time it was like DHTML or something, which was like
right.
dynamic HTML, which that was like, yeah, that was a long time ago. That was like before, if anybody knows what Ajax is, that was
That's
before Ajax was a
before
thing.
PK's time.
It was a long time ago. So that was before jQuery. It was before all those things. So
And what was the first tinkering thing that you built, like on your own with no other company?
oh, I don't know. Probably, you know what? I sold a product, which was probably my first formal product, which was it was oh god, what was it? I built it in Perl. But it was some little like lead management system or something. I don't remember.
Okay.
I think I
Good
sold it
enough.
for like $100.
Okay, so you built SimpleNexus, as we kind of mentioned, into this juggernaut. Encino, bought it. You went on to be the CPO over at Encino, and are now out, as your LinkedIn says, I believe, seeking adventure.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't even know what that means, to be honest. I'm just like, basically, like, I'm looking for fun things to be involved in, right? And whatever that could mean anything. It's not meant to be specific. Some people think it means I'm looking for a job, and I'll take calls on occasion, but it's unlikely that there's going to be a job where I'm reporting to someone that is
right,
exciting for me. So,
right. Yeah, at this point, I would imagine answering to someone is not exactly on your top 10 to-do list.
but hey, for the right opportunity, yeah, sure.
Fair enough.
But
Fair enough. So are there any things that you've been working on that you want to, talk a little bit about? I don't know if we
oh,
want to.
I've got my hands in a few pots. In terms of the mortgage space, the thing that's got me most excited is Arcasa. It's ARCASA. So Arcasa is is enabling down payment assistance, all baked into the first mortgage through standard loans, like standard FHA loans, or others, and able to get. It's not just down payment assistance. It could be buy down using like rate buy down. It could be um, closing costs. It could be a lot of things, and then also getting energy efficiency installed on the home. So, what a lot of lenders are finding is this is not only helping a lot of people get into homes who couldn't have otherwise, but it's also reducing their overall monthly expense, and it's also helping builders because builders have a code that they have to meet in the coming months, that an energy code they're going to have to meet, and they don't know how they're going to charge people more money, but they have to meet this new energy code, and this solves that for the builders as well. So this is it's pretty exciting. We're seeing a lot of momentum go through there. Some major lenders have signed contracts,
Nice.
and we're in process with several others. Talking like top five lenders. So really excited about what that means, and I feel like we've got the right people in there. We've brought in some great developers and some great mortgage focused folks, and then we have the operational background in the solar space to ensure installations and that everything's insured and that it's backed up properly and that it's warranted properly, so that because in the mortgage or the solar business is like very it's got a bad reputation, right? And
Yeah, it's
and
confusing too.
for a lot of good reasons. So I'm excited about our CASA and what it's doing in the mortgage space, because it really is making an impact and making a big difference. And then yeah, I've got my hands on a few other things as well.
Outside of mortgage.
Yeah, outside of mortgage, but maybe in homes, like a company called IGO,
Okay.
where I'm quite involved with IGO, just IGO, and they focus on home inspectors primarily, and then some other things. If you've heard of Utah Prep basketball, I'm quite involved in that. Some healthcare stuff.
Now,
And
is the Utah Prep basketball because of a kid in the house, or
no, it was supposed to be just a real estate flip play, and it's a long story. It's its own story.
okay, okay.
Another accident. Like I get involved in a lot of things by accident. So
Why not if you can, right?
Sometimes it works out.
like, I kind of always have. So like I just get excited about something, and then you just like before I know it, like but you got to figure out how to make it work, so it's not just a drain.
I got a question, Matt. So SimpleNexus was, you guys were doing pretty great, like late 2010s, going into 2020s. Do you miss being kind of like in the hot seat and like, I don't know if in the arena, if you want to say that?
Look, it's a double-edged sword, right? I love to create, right? And good or not, I also love to compete. So I loved those things about it, that we could create and we could compete. We got enough employees that it starts to not feel as much like creation when you start getting into like the 300-400 employee range. It's more management, which I don't get as excited about, but you have to do it, right? And so I was bringing in the right people who could help push that along. But there are times when you're like, oh man, I really want to do that, but I don't regret anything. And there's always stuff to create. So like finding things to do just isn't a problem.
It's finding the time.
So, kind of pivoting from there, what's the dumbest piece of tech advice you've ever received?
Dumbest piece of tech advice. I don't know. I think what I get really bothered by in general, and I'd say this is more of a principle than it is a specific piece of advice, but it's when people, when somebody, this is really common as people progress through their careers, they'll get into like year like 4 or 5, let's call it like a journeyman stage
Mhm.
of their profession, and then they think they know all the answers,
Mhm.
right? Or you get somebody who's, and no offense to, let's say, like, university professors or whatever, but the next stage in their career is to write a book, right? And so then you get these people who, and it's no offense to the people, but it's more offense to the approach of telling everyone how to do something, right? And
Right.
I think that's incorrect. Usually, I think it's better to get the ideas on the table, and then let's look at that contextually and see if that makes sense in this scenario.
Well, Andrew's next question is probably, what tech trend do you think is BS?
What tech trend do I think is BS? I don't. So I don't.
These questions sound negative right now.
No, it's
Goes
fine.
to positive one too.
No, so if I think like what's BS, I think it's more like let's look at let's look at maybe how to apply something rather than saying it's BS, right? So let's look at AI for example, right? That because that's the hot thing right now. There's obviously incredible value behind it. It's going to be bigger potentially than the internet itself, right? But in the early days of the internet, what you saw a lot of were a lot of companies getting funded that had no real substance of value behind them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And so a lot of money went away. It disappeared because it was more you had like a lot of people who, and they probably even believed themselves that they had a lot of value in what they were building. Um, but I think that there's a lot of that in AI. So AI, no question on the long-term value. It's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I think it's underestimated in the long term. I think it's overestimated in the short term.
Hmm.
If that makes sense.
That's a great way to put it. Is there a particular best use case you have seen so far in the AI world?
Best use case. It's so far reaching. I almost prefer to think of it like I almost prefer to think of it like just value add, right? There are areas where there's just no question about value add. Um, and so it's hard for me. It's like an apples to oranges kind of comparison, right? Like it just touches so many things. It's kind of hard to compare them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but right now, I think of it more as like a really, really strong assistant for many different roles, professions, software tools, whatever, than like a perfect answer to things, right? Like if you look at like Europe, for example, they require a human in the loop on AI solutions by law. So you can't have an AI solution that then just like goes to a consumer as a business without some intervention or eyes by a human.
Right.
It's like the dialer system, though. I mean, they get you right there, and then, hi, I'm a human. um,
So
if you were starting SimpleNexus over again, Matt, how would you put AI into it?
How would I put AI into it? That's a good question. Honestly, I like what I see a lot of right now, and I've been pinged to join companies and to advise companies and to potentially even build, and some backed by big time money to like build auto decisioning and things for mortgage. But it seems like there are like 15 companies that are like under the radar companies trying to figure out how to do it right now. Um, that would be an interesting approach, and I just yeah, I think most of the companies are trying to do that, underestimate the complexity of the challenge. But
agreed.
but I don't know if I were to do it again. Obviously, would be using a lot of AI tools, right? Whether that would be Windsurf or whether that's going to be like whatever some of the tools are that plug right into your IDE. Um,
Rue.
but yeah, um, I'm not quite to the point of saying like, oh, you just have AI just build it all for you, right? I don't think.
Yeah.
I think that you lose control after iteration 4, and then you're screwed. But
I do think it has to be a bit of mastery, and you also have to be a programmer. So Andrew, like we joke in our Slack channel, but like I literally was like, we're done. Like Claude's down, and I don't feel like I'm not writing.
He won't. Chris won't work if Claude goes down.
Where do you start using Sonnet?
Google Cloud when Google Cloud went down last week. Mace was like, "I'm going on vacation."
No, we have a literal Slack channel that has multi-exit, people that are just literally doing companies and using AI, and you get links in there, PKs in there, Andrews in there, and like there's a ton of founders in there really doing cutting edge stuff, and it's kind of crickets. Someone might post something, I did this, nobody replies. I did this. Last week, where the Google Cloud platform went down, everybody's talking. The most chat we've ever in that channel was just like going off.
So you guys using Sonnet or what? Like what?
We use Claude Sonnet. We'll use Rue Code as an extension into Visual Studio Code, and then we've tried different platforms. But yeah, it is one of those things where you have to create mini tasks and know how to use it right. Like I do think it is, and I do think it's a skill in and of itself that Sean has mastered, and I've kind of gotten okay at. But yeah, I wrote something last week in like Next.js and like a solution that does some stuff for Encompass, and just cranked it out in a couple hours. But I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't writing manual code. Like that's not happening.
Right, but I still think me personally, I think one of the most overhyped things in tech right now is vibe coding.
I think there's a difference between vibe coding and coding with AI. Like vibe coding is like, hey, go build all this stuff for me, versus like, hey, I'm going to tell you to write this class, and I know what I want it to do, and then like build this function that does this piece for me. Like I piecemeal it myself. I'm not just sitting here going, build me a CRM. Like that is just, come on, like that's not a real world application.
Yeah. So
cool
yes, if you're to go to AI, right? AI, whether it's vibe coding or anything else, you say, build me a tic-tac-toe game. It'll do great.
Yeah.
It'll do fantastic. And then you say, build me a tic-tac-toe game and maintain the history of the games with the outcomes. And it gets a little sideways. And then you say, oh, and I want to be able to restore the games to any one of those games to see to replay the moves. And it's off the rails, right? And you don't know how to get it back on. Right. Yeah. So
there's plenty of times where like you have to say stop, like don't like hallucination is down way far. It's like way better than it was, but you definitely have to know what you're doing, and as you're watching it doing its thing, you're step by step into play. But if you're just doing auto accept and just doing build it for me, you're gonna get a cool little proof of concept. And that's
it can work great for very, very basic, simple, straightforward things. You start getting a lot of complexity and enterprise structure, and it gets more challenging. Plus, the context window can't handle all the data, right? So you get your project gets too big, and it can't process all of it.
Right.
So
right.
But my daughter's 13, and when she comes to me, she's building a business. She's been working on it for the last year, and she's into hundreds of hours. And when she comes, before she comes to me, she's running everything through a variety of AI tools, right? For ideas or suggestions, or she's using a ton of them, and she's 13, and it's insane. And most of the time, it's going to come up with a lot more ideas than I could have, right?
100%. Yeah.
And so. Yeah, I think everybody should be using it. I think the people who learn are going to be the people who advance in the future, the people who are learning how to use the tools. And I think that's going to be really interesting skill set for companies in general in the future. And perhaps if you want to be on the scary side, one of the more scary societal risks that we might face is that it will make it much more efficient for people to do their work, which potentially could mean less people in that particular role, right? It won't mean the role goes away. It's like, oh, are all coders going to get replaced? No, they're going to become more like pilots, right? Who manage the autopilot system, and they have to understand how to take over if it goes like wonky, right? They got to yoink it if they have to and be able to make things work. But one of the problems, there's a book called The Coming Wave. I don't remember the author's name, but you could look it up. He's like head of AI for Microsoft now, and like he was one of the founders of DeepMind. And anyway, it talks a little bit about one of the concerns that we should have is that AI will will make it not necessary to have as many jobs, and that people won't be able to rescale quickly enough, right? In order to be a producing member of society. So, so that's going to be interesting just to watch. And the reason I bring that up is because, people who have their own businesses or want to provide value to businesses in the future, what they have to do is they have to learn how to use these technologies, and the skill sets are going to be different. A creative skill set who knows how to also think about how to frame the questions and how to provide proper context to the AI tools as they're working with them is a different kind of skill set. Right. And you're not going to, it's not going to be anybody who's in a role or perhaps their skill set is more in like checklists or audits, perhaps might be in a little more like they maybe have a bigger gap to learn in terms of skill. Right. But they can still use their skills to say, well, AI, you got to check this and you got to go and check this other thing. And in the meantime, you've got to make sure that, the third item isn't negatively impacted when these two things are validated. Anyway, I think that one of the most interesting things is seeing how the future will impact skill sets and what's required for employees, and what kind of what kind of people you look for in those contexts, and then you can, I think the employers who figure that out and then they get the right employees who have positioned themselves well end up way ahead of everyone else.
100%. It is really interesting to me that, and you guys correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but this is really the first time where we've seen major innovation that is this disruptive, moving at the pace that it is, where the way you go to learn it is in public, right? Like you can't, there's no university you can go to today and be like as up to speed, right? Like, I mean, it's YouTube and it's people really, right? Who are teaching the things. And so it's really kind of fascinating. I've been watching like
the advancements are so fast, the university can't keep up. Like, let's make
right. Exactly. But also like it seems like it's much more of your like go-getter, right? Like it's not a specific background necessarily. When I look at the people that I know who are like rapidly advancing in their use of AI, it's not like they're all engineers, right? For instance,
No.
Our marketing guy is like fine-tuning his own models, right? Like at home, and like, has this crazy setup and is just teaching himself at night how to do all these things.
I've got a close friend who's a salesperson who has built out inventory management models for, I'm not going to say the specific space that he's doing it in, because he's trying to roll up a particular space, but through like acquisitions. But he built his own inventory management system that he feels like gives a massive advantage. And he did it just like, honestly, like by writing his own code.
Yeah.
So
it is crazy to see what our people are doing. And it is also like, I built a company in 2020, which obviously, we didn't have GPT or AI on all the headlines back then. And then doing it in 2024, again, it was crazy to compare the differences between the two, of all of the little things that like you always had to worry about before that are instantly, like all of a sudden they're right at your fingertips, and the ability to move at a much, much faster pace. I mean, we had our website, just as an example, we took our website, punched our website into GBT and asked for it to give recommendations on rewriting all the copyright, right? And now I didn't take the copyright that GBT gave me, but it did point out a lot of blind spots that I would have had to have paid a marketer, potentially tens of thousands of dollars to do that just 3-4 years ago.
Mhm.
So it is kind of crazy to see where it is heading.
No, it's completely awesome. It's completely awesome. And I like I say, I look at it as more as like you should look at it like a great advisor, um, or maybe be like advisor slash assistant, because like I say, my daughter, working on her website, like she was having Chat GPT do most of the work on her website, and after like iteration 3, it got lost. It confused itself. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, okay, I have to ask, what is the company that your 13-year-old is building, or is it still in stealth?
No, she's selling stuff. It's called Puptato.
Okay.
I think it's like puptatopuppies.com or something, but think like Build-A-Bear / Pound Puppies. So you like adopt a plush puppy, and then you can customize the puppy and stuff and all these things. But anyway, yeah, I just bring it up because I've been so amazed um, by how much she's accomplished just with these tools,
Right.
right? I mean, you're talking, like a seventh grader that's like, that's got all of her design work, her logos, like all these incredible things um, that she's pretty much done herself. Like
Right.
I've really not done anything. So it's just kind of like blows your mind, right?
Yeah, my now 12-year-old, he'll be 13 in September, but he came to me last year and he really wanted to like build Roblox games. And I was like, great. I'm like, here's a laptop, here's GPT. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah.
That's sort of my attitude towards it. I was like, if you want to do it, like, great,
Well-
go figure it out. And sure enough, like he sat there and he was at the kitchen table, friggin', punching away, like learning about Roblox
Yeah.
code. And
Yeah. Which
you
is
know,
awesome for creativity and learning. And he's learning how now to work with these tools.
yeah.
Right. And so then
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say, did you guys ever use like that website is LMGTFYs? Let me Google that for you. So my brother used to like be like, don't tell me to Google it, but if you went to letmegooglethatforyou.com and you typed in something, it would send someone a link and it would just be a video, and they would go to google.com, they would click in the thing and it would search what they were asking you. And so my little brother was like, you're not, because he's like, you always told me go Google it. It's like, you're gonna be telling your daughter who's only 4 now, so like, let me AI that for you. So she's like, but I always encouraged him. I was like, before you come to me, did you look it up? No. Okay.
Oh, I do
Yeah,
that.
well-
I do that with my wife. I'm like, did you GPT it?
Mhm.
Oh, well, the other day, what's funny is I was like, I don't think so. And she goes, I use Chat GPT. And I was like, oh, well, it's not always.
You're like, obviously, we all know Chat GPT doesn't have enough information in their current model for that. So you're going to have to go to,
Oh, she's
like,
finally learned Perplexity and Gemini. She's getting better. Yeah.
You got Gemini. You've got the X one. I don't remember the name of it. Grok.
Grok.
That one's going to have pretty like recent stuff in it. Anyway, you learn which ones are better for different scenarios.
Oh yeah, 100%. Although is what I'm always curious. My default like main is GPT.
It's good. It's good.
Gemini
As an everyday, it's my replacement to Google. Like I tell people, like the only time I open a browser anymore is if I have a very specific website that I'm looking to go to. Outside of that, like I live in GPT.
I've seen Gemini improve a lot over the last year, and so Gemini actually gives quite good responses now to web searches. And so I'll ask a question in a web search with the intention of seeing what Gemini has to say about it.
Yeah. So what we have found, what's interesting is we right now have found Gemini's API for at least what we do to be the best of the APIs. The hard thing for me to get GPT's API, we find to be garbage, but I don't know, maybe that's our prompting. But as far as my problem with getting rid of GPT is it knows so much about me that I'm sort of like, oh God, do I really want to start over? Like we've talked about this before. I actually was messing around. I was trying to figure out if there would be a way for me to pull all
export
of the
everything.
to export my digital soul, if you will, out of GPT so that I could push it into another LLM and have it right up to date, right?
I don't know. I really don't know. It would be interesting to learn about like how they store contextual information,
Right.
because there is a memory limit, right, on how much contextual information it can store in relation to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
And if you think of the number of users that they have on it, that they're storing, I mean, the volume of that information is just mind blowing when you think about it.
Yeah, they have
Time to
that.
build some data centers.
yeah, we're going to use up all the world's water, and nobody's going to have electricity anymore because those companies are going to buy it all.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Okay.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The world's coming to a complete better end. You heard it here first from Matt. By
Matt.
the way, anybody who's watching live, if you got any questions for Matt or anybody else, feel free to drop them in the comments, and we can go from there.
I got a good, real quick one if
Please,
you guys
jump in.
prefer. So Matt, when you mentioned your journey for SimpleNexus, you kind of accidentally fell into it. 10 years later, maybe 15 years later, you have all the wisdom, all the trials and tribulations. You also know the lay of the land much better than you did in 2010, right? If you're building a mortgage company now, what product space kind of like would you go build in?
Well, I mean, I'm involved in Arcasa, which is different. It's quite different.
Sure.
But can have every bit as much of an impact, if not more. And so I'm pretty excited about that. If I were to go and build, so with Encino, it broadened my world a bit also with Encino, because Encino does commercial lending, products, small business, retail lending, secured and unsecured loans. And so you get to see a little bit more than just mortgage, which is pretty awesome. And so,
is there anything with relation to AI or tech specifically that you see, if you think like if it was applied in a certain workflow or something like that would be game changing?
I don't know. I mean, an area that would be really, really fascinating to me is to explore a variety of data points in the secondary market, and have something that could advise buyers in the secondary market, or sellers, right, and do a better analysis of value on the secondary market loans. And try and identify points where perhaps the buyer is going to get a better deal than what the initial data point suggests, right? Because they understand it at a deeper level. I think that'd be kind of cool. I think that'd be a lot of fun to figure out. I haven't tinkered with that at all, but that's an area I think could have a lot of value. And the question is, like, where do you go to get all the data, right? And that's the big question really in all the AI stuff right now. I mean, because there's so many models, everybody can build a model, right? It's just like, I mean, you're gonna have a few really, really good ones, but the value is, I mean, a massive amount of value is in the data now, right? And so everybody's trying to figure out how does that work.
Yeah, to 100% agree. I mean, I think the LLM itself is just going to become a commodity. It's no different than electricity or something of that nature, right? I mean, once you get the great models out there, then you end up seeing an open source copy of it.
You got really good ones that are big and that compete with each other already, right? You got Claude, right, Gemini, Grok, and ChatGPT or other OpenAI stuff, right? The image generators, they're just tons of really, really good video generators. They're really, really good ones now.
It's crazy how good they are.
They're not good enough, but I mean, you're gonna need $10 billion if you want to think about competing at that level.
Yes, no question about it. But I think my point is there's so many models, right? And we don't even, not even including there, right? Mistral, Quen, DeepSeek, Meta. That there's so many models that I feel like it just ends up becoming a commodity. And it seems like to me that all of those companies you mentioned are very much all eyes on B2C
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. And so I think that B2B, there's so many, it's so much more complex, right? Like if we use the secondary market as an example, like huge opportunity in the secondary market, but also a very complex ecosystem with a lot of edge cases, a lot of data that's different from one investment bank to another. Which I think, again, presents a lot of opportunities for people from that perspective.
Yeah.
Liz, I be curious to kind of get your take on something. So the mortgage industry is an interesting beast. How about we say it that way? And I know there's a lot of times a lot of shade thrown towards mortgage tech. Um, and a lot of that comes down to the volume of customization from shop to shop, right? On what level did you experience that, Matt, with SimpleNexus? And were there any sort of tricks that you learned along the way, or things that you would maybe do a little bit differently if you went backwards in time, or kind of started over? Does that make sense?
Oh, kind of. Look, I'm not really a believer. I mean, it's maybe like, what have you learned, right? Because I'm not really a believer that hindsight's 2020. Because
Uh,
people have a tendency to forget the historical context of what of their decisions, or what they did, or what
yeah,
was available at the time, or um so it's really hard to say, because I mean, SimpleNexus started as like this little digital business card, more or less, right? You're like, oh, what if you went bigger sooner? Well, maybe, right? Maybe that would have worked well, and it might have had the opposite effect, right?
Mhm.
Because we were able to focus very narrowly and solve a problem that was very exciting at the time.
Right.
Um, and if we had tried to think bigger, it's possible that we would have never gotten the momentum that we got, because we were focused on boiling the ocean in some way, right? And so, in some ways, I'm like, "Ah, I wish I just thought about thinking bigger sooner." Um, and
That may have hindered you in the ultimate.
it's possible, yeah, it's possible. And I think a lot of, I think a lot of companies, I think a lot of CEOs actually fall into the problem of of forgetting how many irons they have in the fire, right? And then they end up like not really getting anything done.
Right. That's fair.
Um, and so it's just so hard to say.
Hey, I left my 300 person company and said I'll never have more than 5 people. Now I say I'll never have more than 10, but I'm serious. I'll never have more than 10.
Well,
Yeah,
and it is on that focus point to your point, Matt, is I have found also in the age of AI, it becomes even more difficult to keep that level of focus, right? Because what I find is everybody has an idea. Like everybody's like, oh, you guys should really be doing
ideas
this.
are cheap, right? The saying is true. Ideas are cheap.
Right, but it's like with AI, I find that people are even more vocal about like, oh, well, this is what you should be doing with AI, right? Like I get on a lot of calls and people will say that, and a lot of times you have to be like, that's not even feasible, like that's not possible, right? Like sort of situation. It's like you said earlier, right? Long term, AI will be amazing. Short term, it's overestimated, and people are trying to solve huge problems rather than focusing in on where are the small, like quick wins and utilizing AI within the organization.
Like these companies who are doing like these public statements, like, oh, we're laying off a bunch of people because like we're laying off a whole bunch of developers because we've just gotten so much efficiency out of AI. Like, bullshit.
Thank you.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
like, hey, like, I'm all for AI. I'm a believer. It's got, and it's going to do incredible things, but that you think that you gained that much efficiency in that short of a period of time with thousands of developers, and that information is actually spreading across, and you've seen the efficiency over 1 or 2 year period when you have 80,000 employees. I'm sorry. Like,
Hey,
I don't buy it.
it's really good for Wall Street. You know, we're not
No,
doing layoffs.
it's a great line. Look, it's a great line. But even the analysts know it's crap, right?
Right.
So
It's
They're
a
just
good
people-
excuse to cut the fat.
Right.
Yeah,
They're just developers that shouldn't have been there in the first place, right?
probably, right.
Exactly.
Yeah. It is. Matt, thank you for saying that, because that has been a pet peeve of mine, and it continues to fuel this like Instagram world where people. So what happens is people believe these videos on Instagram where it's like, I'm making $1 million a week on an app I built by myself, and I didn't even know how to program. Right. Like, and it's like Zuckerberg or Benioff or whoever, gets on their quarterly call and they're like, we just let go of 5,000 developers because of AI. And then, what did Zuck say on his last quarterly meeting? That like,
I don't know. Yeah.
they're no longer, they're never going to hire another mid-level engineer. That was what he said. And I was like, okay, like,
how are you going to get the senior ones?
Yeah.
Why, I mean,
They grow on trees.
Well, but also like it also begs back to the point is like what I mean, and I'm all for pro AI, right? But also there's got to be somewhat of a balance, because if you become way too dependent on it, right? And then like we saw the other day, I mean, I was just messing with you, Mace, but like,
calling me out? You calling me out? All right.
I am. I'm gonna call you out. But like all of a sudden it like goes away, right? And everybody, I'm as guilty as you, right? I'm like, oh God. I mean, Google Cloud went down, and I was like, screw it.
Look, think of it this way, okay? Like when calculators came out, like mathematicians were vibe calculating, right? Like they're just using a tool, right? So, but they've got to have a way now. You can be pretty precise with that stuff, which was where it was with AI. There's a lot more creativity that comes into play, but it's just a tool.
Yeah,
and it's something that I would say, in general, people haven't quite figured out how to use yet. Right? So you have some use cases that have done some very incredible things, like absolutely, right? Like to listen to, transcribe a call and then list out the to-dos for everyone. That's pretty cool.
Yes, agreed.
Right? And there are a whole bunch of those.
Yep. Granola AI is my favorite when it comes to that. But yeah, you're 100% right. But again, it comes back to, right, is those, what are those really hyper sort of focused, items versus, eating the entire whale with AI.
I will tell you a test that I did. Well, I did a series of tests. So while I was running product and engineering at Encino, that was, it was a bit after that when ChatGPT kind of hit the headlines, right? And so everybody's like, oh, we've got, like, not everybody. I had an AI team of, I don't know, maybe 24 people, and and they're saying we got to get these AI tools for all the developers. Like, oh, hold on, before we go and we spend, a tool for 600 people every month. Let's just run some tests, right? And I was hearing about Codium, and which is now Windsurf, and I was hearing about like all these different tools. ChatGPT is one, and at the time when it came out, they didn't guarantee any kind of privacy controls on it, and so there was the fears from attorneys about you're protecting your company's information and all those things. But what we did is we ended up saying, okay, let's try 4 different tools, and we'll have 30 developers use each tool, and then we'll assess it after, like, as an ongoing basis, right? And some of the tools didn't provide the metrics, the actual hard metrics that I wanted to see, so I had to go more off of like what people say about it, and some had real metrics, right? So I could evaluate usage. What I found almost without fail is that the developers who benefited from the tools, and I suspect this is not only true in engineering, but it's also true in other professions, they're using AI tools. The experts were the ones who benefited the most, which was opposite of what I expected initially. Initially, I thought, oh, like the people who don't know what they're doing will get all this stuff done for them. No, the problem was the people who were younger in their careers didn't know what to ask, and they didn't know what problems to look for, right? And so then it would suggest things, and they don't really even know like what the heck it's talking about. And so it was actually a very small percentage who actually benefited from the tools. Most everyone didn't even use them. Because they didn't really know how, right?
You're right. Yeah.
And these are mostly tools that are like baked into their IDEs, or maybe they go out externally and paste some information, like like an error, or something, and maybe that gives them the answer. But maybe some test writing tools or things. But the experts were the ones who benefited the most. Like, absolutely.
It makes sense, really, when you think about it at the end of the day. I mean, I remember somebody, this was, I don't know, a year or two ago, and somebody said to me, the best way to prompt ChatGPT is treat it like an intern, right? Who's just graduated with their master's. Well, it's like it can do a lot of stuff, but needs that specific direction, right? You would never have like a junior analyst be in charge of the interns. So it makes all the sense in the world to me that it's like, you see the top tier. With all that being said, any novel uses that you're using, whether it's Gemini, Claude, GPT, it not even necessarily in work, but in personal life. Because sometimes those are the most fun.
I mean, I use it a lot. I use different ones for different things. Like I say, like if it is a thing where I'm like, I haven't quite got to the point of using ChatGPT for, let's say, like research shopping for like product comparisons, right? For like a consumer facing product that you want to purchase, right? And so like I'll use Google for those, or I might, but it like I built I've had a couple surgeries recently, and I'm like rehabbing from those. So say help build a program for me using this methodology and this methodology combined, in weight training. Considering that I had these surgeries and I need to recover from them, I want to make sure I don't re-injure myself. Help me build out a program that'll help me reduce the loss of strength, but get recovered as quickly as possible. So there's things like that. There was a friend whose daughter went missing recently, and I was like using more modern tools to try and figure out, like if there are ways I could help, and where targeting, where different approaches could be used in targeting how to try and look, right? Almost like kind of like PI type of work, type of stuff. And so yeah, and like I say, my daughter's using it every day, like a lot more than I am. Like she's using AI tools dozens of times a day. Like she's working all day, and it's like that's like her world now. But I've got Claude, and I have Grok, and I have Gemini, and I have ChatGPT. I pay for them all. I pay for Midjourney. I pay for I'm paying.
You got Leonardo in the mix. Hey, Jen.
I'm paying for probably close to a dozen different AI tools right now.
So because Matt's AI habit is a car payment.
So I I want to be part of the learning crowd, right? So
Yeah, no, 100%.
Respect.
There's no question about it. Slight side notes, but favorite podcast?
I need to get into podcasts more. I mean, you hear people always, it's like you got to listen to Friedman, or you got to and I just have never really gotten into podcasts.
Oh, all right, there you go.
I
Favorite
need
book?
to. Favorite book. You know what? I mean, I love the Sherlock Holmes series, like all of them.
Okay.
I freaking love them. I just think I think they're so great. So when I was in London last time, I went to Sherlock Holmes's the fake, monument house they have for him there, and like all the stuff
that's
from the
cool.
books, and I think they're awesome. If there's a business
I had to
book,
question my sanity there. I was like, Sherlock Holmes is real? And I was like,
that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Sorry,
But
man.
unfortunately, no. Yeah, if there's like a business book, I mean, there's so many good ones. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But a really fun one to listen to is Never Split the Difference, if you haven't already.
Okay.
It's like a negotiation book, but it is a great listen. It is a great listen.
I have not read that one, so I'm gonna have to add it to the list.
That's a good one. It's a big time. It's a bestseller. It's a big book, but I mean, it's a good book. Other good ones. I mean, there's so many, right? So it's hard to say a favorite. I'll listen to another really, really good one that I don't see get publicized as much, but is actually from a guy in Utah, is Nail It Then Scale It. And I think that's a phenomenal book. And I think that if I were to look at how the really how, and I use it from like an investing perspective too, right? In so many ways, where you want to work with things where they've been testing the waters quite a lot, right? And understand it before you put a boat in it, right? And we went through this period of blitz scaling, which was like your Reid Hoffman approach of like raise tons and tons of money, put the humans behind everything until you can automate it all, and then it'll work out, right? And now everybody wants to see profitability in businesses, and so.
Okay, so Matt, normally we have a question from the prior guest, but last week we had the gathering going on for Housing Wire, so we didn't have an episode. So I apologize. There is no question for you, but
all good.
I do need you to give us a question. So our guest next week is Theo Ellis from Friday Harbor. If you don't know Friday Harbor, PK can probably give a rundown real quick. PK brought Theo, so I'm hoping that PK can give a rundown.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one-liner is just AI underwriting for mortgages.
Okay.
So what is one question you would ask Theo?
I guess if I were to ask Theo a question, it would be, I mean, it's hard to ask a single question, but I would say, how are you using human in the loop to validate the underwriting process?
All right, there you go.
Because they certainly are in some ways.
Right. Yeah, there's no question about it, for sure. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much. I went a little bit over. Really appreciate you you coming on this week. It was great to meet you and hear a little bit more about your background and what you're doing next. And we'll all be keeping an eye on what other new adventures Matt is up to. So,
all right, guys, thanks.